Yep.
Coming from Cincinnati, this is the Spin Lob.
Welcome to the Spin Lob, Season 1, Episode 14, To Be or Not to Be a Club, as we talk shop about creating and running a club program. Tonight we have Pete Dankert with Glass City Water Polo and Sylvania Water Polo, and we'll talk about how to grow a club from ground up. We also have, obviously, Nick Helwig here who started Moose Water Polo and is currently running Marlins Water Polo. The Spin Lob is produced and recorded live by Mike Jones and Nick Helwig. It's supported by the Ohio Squirrels, who never too old to get into the game, go nuts. And also the Marlins Water Polo for love of the game. There's always Marlins Water Polo. This podcast is all about Ohio water polo and how we fit into the national scene. It's a combination of what's going on in Ohio, Midwest, and the national scene. Last week, we talked to the Machulis brothers and talking about all the different levels of water polo, Division I, Division II, and where they are right now with the move to spring for high school and college water polo on hold in Ohio. There was not too much to update. So let's get on tonight with tonight's guest with Pete. So Pete, let's start going. Thanks for being on the call, by the way.
Yeah, guys. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Nick, for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's give the listeners a little bit of background on yourself. So what kind of water polo experience you have, coaching and et cetera with Glass City and Sylvania. Can you give us an update?
Sure. Yeah, I got a little bit of high school playing experience and then collegiate club at University of Toledo. And a little bit of coaching while I was there with the Sylvania team back when I was a coach many years ago. And then more recently in 2012, I took over the Sylvania high school coaching job, and I did that through 2018. And then in 2017, while I was still coaching there, we started the Glass City team as well. So it's been going on for a few years. So it's relatively new, though.
Can you give us like a little description of what Glass City does? I kind of follow you guys on Twitter, and I've seen some of the cool stuff you guys do with all the different aquatic things. I think you said like all different aquatic sports at one point in time. You were working with different kids in the Toledo area.
Yeah, so we're trying to be a polo team or club for all ages. So we started with high school because that was the easiest place to start with, right? You've already got the existing athletes, and then we've tried to go basically younger. And so we've gotten a pretty good 14 under, solid group of 14 unders that play in the spring and a little bit in the summer and the winter. And then we added some younger splash ball type of stuff for kind of like the 11, 10 and under group and that sort of thing. So yeah, we've kind of expanded to trying to hit all those age groups. And we're even recently just about to start a master's program when the whole COVID-19 thing kicked off. We were about a week or two out from our first practice session and it got canceled. So yeah, we're really close to kind of having all the age groups covered.
Oh, that's fantastic. Having another master's program would be great to, that's 4 programs in the state. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it would be really neat. Looking forward to getting that started at some point here.
So when you kind of had this idea to start up, like what was your thought behind starting up Glass City?
Yeah, so we started with Sylvania when I was at Sylvania, just doing stuff in the off season, and it became a little more apparent that there, there's other teams in the area, in the Toledo area at the time. There was St. Francis. There was a girls team out of St. Ursula, and so we looked at it and we said, really, we want to be able to offer something to everybody in the area, not just Sylvania. Plus, not everybody plays in the off season, so we needed something off season that was not associated with any of the high school teams. So that was one reason to get started. Also, my big thing is just trying to grow the sport. So again, the younger kids, getting the kids started a little bit younger, introduced to the sport. So trying to get those groups started is a big part of what I'm interested in for the club as well. Not just improving the athletes that are out there at the high school level, but starting earlier too.
I completely agree with that. And that's actually the hard part is getting those kids in and keep them going, because you don't have the high school kids to just grab, like, going into the high school, oh, hey, let's play some water polo. You've got kids that are brand new to the sport that, parent tells you oh yeah, they swim all the time, but they don't tell you it's in the backyard kiddie pool they have.
Yeah, it is challenging. It is challenging to find and attract kids to a sport they don't know anything about, never heard of, never seen, and get them to try it. But we're getting there. We're growing. We're learning, I guess, as we go through this. Had a lot of learnings over the past couple of years. That's for sure.
Yeah. What are your numbers right now overall for the program?
Well, let's see. In the spring, we were anticipating at the 14 and under, we about 16 kids, which is pretty strong considering we started with about 10. I think our first year we had about 10 in that first team. So we've got a pretty solid group, and that was with moving. We moved 5 up to the high school last year, so that was pretty exciting too, to essentially graduate, a big group up to the high schools. And then overall, we were close to around 30 with the high school. Again, it's really only high school boys. Unfortunately, there's no girls teams in the Toledo area anymore. So only high school boys, and then the 1400 boys, what we're working with.
Gotcha.
So Nick, I'm going to jump in here. Nick, you've gone through some kind of building process with Marlins. Any kind of similarities that you've gone through with that program as well that Pete's talked about?
Yeah, and really, and for Marlins, I got the benefit of kind of jumping in where Mike Roberts kind of had left off. But when I had really started with the down here in Cincinnati was with Moose in 2009. It was after my first year coaching, and there was nothing really in the off season. There used to be a club team down here, River City. I don't know, Mike ever got a chance to play with them. It was like from 1997 to 2003. Chad Packer is one of the ones who was helping run that. I mean, to talk with him, I interviewed him a couple years ago about it. He said at their height they had like 93 players, and they played in Michigan and Illinois and Missouri, which makes me kind of think that I played against him back when I was in high school. But in 2009, there was nothing left down here. Except for maybe Milford did some of their own in-house stuff, but nothing for kind of club scene. So I started talking with Paul Split about trying to create an off-season ability just for kids to play, just kind of like what Pete said, where, you want them to be able to get more polo experience and play and, draw people in, because if they can play a little bit in the spring, they might bring a friend in and you can keep growing that way. And so we kind of really lucked out, and there was and when we started in the summer, there was a lane all deep facility called Montgomery Swim and Tennis that was there. And we kind of talked with them about, some of my players happen to be members, and they said we should run some stuff up there. So we ran it like a little club session. And then from there, it just kind of kept exploding. We started hosting a tournament. This year was supposed to be our 10th year for hosting that one, where we've had teams from all over the country come play. Actually, there's a team from Georgia that's made it for every season. It has been kind of cool to see. And then we, hosted one tournament that had, I think, like 24 teams. And we also hosted a spring tournament, the River City Invite. But then I did transition over to the Marlins, and Pete may agree with this one, but one of the things that people forget about when you're coaching on the club side is you're also running the club, and that's things outside of coaching, which we love. It's the finances, the advertising, all the stuff that is behind the scenes that can take a lot more time. And so I just kind of transitioned over to the Marlins, wanted to kind of get some of that stuff off of my shoulders, but at the same time looking to kind of create a larger program that would be more competitive on the national level, kind of being like Moose and Marlins together. Right when that kind of was all going on, Moose and Marlins kind of stayed separate. Paul took over the Moose boys side of stuff, and I just kept with the Marlins. And so we were able to, just be able to keep that competition there, to keep having an in-city competition, which is great to be able to kind of scrimmage and stuff against. But that's kind of how I got involved with the club stuff. So it wasn't super from scratch on the Marlin side for me. I was more just stepping in a role, but definitely literally drawing on a chalkboard. What do we do? Where are we going to go? How are we going to do all that? And that's what we did. And Mike, you did the same thing though. Starting Squirrels, there was no master's program down here. So how did you do that one?
Oh, that was a lot of work, but my counterpart and I, Nick Long, who played for University of Dayton, so we left college and we realized we wanted to still play water polo, and it was something that was fun for us. And so we started an adult league down here from scratch, and we, you know, I think the biggest benefit was that we had so much drive and so many people that wanted to join us that was the biggest thing, that we had numbers. From the get-go, we had 10 people that were willing to come to practice, twice a week and commit to that. The next biggest step, I think, was creating that pool partnership from the very beginning, like having access to a pool on a regular basis. It was very important for us. And I think the third thing that was the biggest important was like setting that guidelines on the expectations of how to practicing with us and what to expect from a timeline, setting practice schedules and what to, the amount of energy you're going to put in practice, structure of practice, and then eventually attending tournaments. That was our ultimate goal. 6 months in was what we were going to do. Pete, in your perspective with working with your high school program and even in Glass City, when you're starting that club with Glass City, what were the three big things that you thought were the most important they were to start off with? What were the three things that if you were to start a club right now, right now?
Yeah, so it's a challenge. Like, I could probably list out 10 things, but I mean, three things. I mean, you have to set some realistic goals for what you're trying to accomplish. Like what you said about getting to, 6 months, want to be able to play in a tournament, whatever those goals are, for whether it's we want to have 10 kids, we want to have, girls and boys team, we want to be able to play in 6 months, but be patient, because it's a long process and you'll go down a road you didn't expect. You'll run into some hurdles. So, that's a really big one. But set the goals, and that helps you stay on track and make sure you're managing to that. Second, though, is don't be afraid to ask for help. I mean, the water polo community is fantastic for that. Ask people for help. The people will loan you equipment. They'll have you up for practices or games. Or even scrimmage, and even like a mixed scrimmage. Mixing with their team in scrimmage, that sort of thing. I'm sure you guys have done lots of things like that with teams in your area. And then the other one, the big one that I think I've seen happen to people, is budgeting and staying kind of in that budget. It's really hard when you're building a new team from scratch. It's tough. You don't need $1,000 caps your first season. You don't need to have a ball for everybody in the pool. That sort of thing. Be used balls. So. That's the toughest one, is staying organized. And I'll go back to a point that Nick made just a second ago on the organizational side. I mean, you won't find me on the pool deck as much anymore. I kind of step back from coaching, and I've taken on the administrator role. That stuff that nobody wants to do but needs to be done. It's the budgeting and financing. Paying attention to the finances and scheduling pool time and building those relationships with different pools and stuff like that. So that's kind of, that third one there is kind of, you need to budget, but you also need somebody to be sort of your whether it's your club director or whatever you want to call them, somebody to keep you on track.
And I always forget that we are on audio only, because I'm sitting here nodding my head with everything you're saying. I mean, I could not agree more with those things. I think to add on to that, I think one of the big things you have to be is flexible. I mean, I lucked into an 8-lane all deep pool my first time through, but you can play polo in any pool, 6-lane, shallow deep. They're college programs, division level programs that are playing in shallow deep pools. it's a matter of what you do with the space you have, not trying to search always necessarily the best space. Like you said, you don't need brand new caps the first one. You don't first set of practice, you may not even need caps. You're working through things. So that one, and you've got kids that are trying the sport for the first time that you're, jumping in. You may not have, the national title team. You've got kids who want to play and love. That's why they're joining. It's not, and that's the whole point of this, is you're getting to grow the sport for the people who want it. And I think you have to be willing to put in the hours. I think Pete and I just mentioned that, like, recruiting when you're not just high school kids, like especially the 14 unders or getting new kids, and it's mailing, it's schools and calling ADs and rec centers and spreading the word, whatever you can. You spend time, just on the computer and on the phone outside of just being on the pool deck. And I think one of the things that it took me a while to understand is really for the coaches that, and I received this from another coach a couple of years ago, that, we do this because we love the sport, but loving it doesn't mean we need to do it for free. Like, we spend our time, it's part of a job, right? You're enjoying the sport, you enjoy giving up, you enjoy coaching. At the same time, you're spending time away from your family, you're spending time, away from other stuff you can do. And so you don't want to end up hating what you're doing and taking the fun away, because it can't be just, you've got to compensate yourself for the time, or you're going to start, or the people around you start kind of getting angry at the sport that you love.
Yeah, those are great points, Nick.
I mean, one of the big things, and we all I mentioned this in there, is pool. So Pete, like, what is the relationship you guys have with the pool? What pool do you use? And I know at one point in time, I think you were using a quarry. Was that correct?
Yeah, so that was with Sylvania, with the high school team. We did use a quarry for a little bit there. So the pool, finding water is challenging. So I'll call it water instead of a pool. But finding water is a challenge in our area. Normally we're in at Sylvania Northview. That's our main pool there. But we've been practiced at St. Francis, and then we were even in Bowling Green. Down there, wanted to get into the all deep, but also too, part of what I mentioned before about growing the sport, we did some sessions down there where we had basically open practice and tried to advertise down in that area. And for anybody who's not familiar, Bowling Green is about 35 minutes south of Sylvania, so it's not a real short drive, but it's not too far. But it's far enough and they've got a good swimming program and a decent sized high school down there, right? So you could theoretically the team possibly, but yeah, so we've kind of gone to some different pools. There's been some outdoor pools used in the area as well, occasionally in the summer, but it's challenging. I think you guys, it seems from our perspective up here, that you guys down there in the south have a little bit more availability to different pools and different options down there. Maybe that's just my perception. What would you say to that?
Mike, what do you think? Pool availability.
Well, current state pool availability is very difficult. There's only a couple pools that we're able to play in because of our partnership with them in the past and our COVID program. But I would say it's an ongoing process to continue to recruit pools, kind of like recruiting players. So, since the Squirrels started, we've had 7 pool relationships, all great relationships. That we have advanced ourselves with, and I will never bat my eye on any of them because they've all been great, but you always have to be looking at what's the next best pool that we can be using. And so when we started with the Squirrels, we started at Milford High School, a shallow deep pool, and then we advanced to Xavier University, another shallow deep pool, and then we advanced to UC, and now we're also at Evendale outdoor pool, PCY, which is outdoor and indoor, Keating. And so we've kind of sprung ourselves out to all these different facilities. And it starts with that initial conversation with the pool director or the athletic director to make sure we're the right fit for them. and they have the right equipment. But it is never, ever a one-stop shop. You always have to be making sure that, say that pool shuts down, or say that there's a better facility that you can use, or your program expands. And so it's always a meet and greet kind of, let's make sure we're all friends here. We can help your program, you can help our program, kind of a thing. And I think that's helped us along the way, that we've built a brand, at least in Cincinnati, that's made us go a lot farther than we thought. And obviously, we're also at Heating too with St. X. Sorry, Nick, not to mention that pool.
And I think, Pete, we definitely might have more pool space available. I know in my coaching career, I was trying to tally these up before. We were at a Norwood High School, Sycamore High School, Montgomery Swim and Tennis, Princeton High School, Cincinnati Country Day, and Keating. We've hosted at UC. I don't know if there's any other ones I'm forgetting, but as kind of Mike said, you're really just kind of trying to find a spot you can fit, because one year they might have that availability and the next year they don't. And so you've got to, like I said before, be very flexible in that. And, Keating and Princeton were the only all-D pools that we've been able to use. But at the same time, you mentioned before budget, right? So it's, Princeton High School has, them and Mason have some of the best pools down here to use for water polo, but you may not be able to afford it. And so you got to look at your budget. And so you're saying, okay, we can either have one practice or we can have 10 practices based on that price. And so I think that can be there. Like this summer, with most of the pools shut down in the summer to begin with, we ended up finding an outdoor pool that, wasn't completely 6 lanes wide, but we were able to use it and do skill work and shooting work and, make it do what you can with it.
So, Pete, let's go on to recruiting. So, at a master's program, we are constantly recruiting. We're looking at triathletes. We're looking at CrossFit athletes to join us, even people that are really not acclimated that much with the water. Obviously, former swimmers are great, but we always try to get people into the program that are just completely new to the sport. And we always love having them because we can train them. Talk about your recruiting tactics and to get people to join Glass City.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if we have tactics. I've done a lot of try something and see if it works, and that's why I said you have a lot of learnings as you go through this. Building a club, because what works in one area may not work in another area. But again, you guys know that the recruiting and getting people into sport, the best advertisement is word of mouth, is really getting other people that have played or talking to people yourself and trying to basically get them in. I've gone out to summer swim leagues the last 2 years, not this summer, but the previous 2 summers, and set up a tent with giving away free grade championship swim meet, and just standing there all day long with water polo balls and caps and talking about the sport. And then we offered a free tryout session, a week later, to try and get some of those kids that just kind of, they swim a little bit in the summer maybe and see if they want to try the sport out. Again, it's at the mostly younger level, 14 and unders. And then just, advertising in the schools with the, like the flyers that they, allow you to post online that the parents can see and stuff, just offering those programs. But a lot of it comes back to, kind of like the budget. We mentioned the finances. So when we're doing we're trying to attract younger kids, we try and charge just a small fee, or, as low as we can go. And we might be able to get them in the pool at the same time as we're having an existing practice with the older kids, and use just a small portion of the pool for these, to try and get that person or that family in with a low fee and try and get them hooked. It's old advertising, or marketing tactic there to get people in and get them in the door. But to also, kind of take advantage of existing pool time you've already booked and that sort of thing.
We've all mentioned this now a couple times, budgets. So if you were starting a program, if you're a kid in high school, or a parent of a kid in high school, or another coach or former player, like, what are some of the things that you guys think, Mike, and you can chime on this as well, or Pete, what are some of those things that you've got to budget in for, and what are some of the biggest things that are your biggest money things that you spend money on? Like, if you have a limit number, what should you make sure you're spending your money on first?
I think, from my perspective, it's going to be pool time, right? That's always the biggest number there is always the pool time. But the ones that sneak up on you are, if you're in the season, somebody asks you to come attend a tournament, right? Or just your fees, like if your coach's fees to join USA Water Polo, or the team fees to join USA Water Polo, or whatever organization you join, right? Some of those that kind of sneak up on you. And that's what I think always the toughest, is when trying to figure out a budget when you're going in brand new, not knowing what to expect. But yeah, I think you guys, do you see different? I mean, is there another big one that I'm missing there that you guys can think of?
I mean, I agree. Pool is probably the biggest one. And yeah, but like those small fees sneak up on you, like player fees.
I agree. So one of the fees that we have up on us is our website fee. So we pay probably $150 to $200 a year on our website, and it's because it's a great attractive thing for our club. So when people Google Cincinnati water polo, they tend to find the squirrels, and if they're an adult player, that's great. It's one of the things that we have to bite the bullet on every single time, because we know it's part of our image. Same thing so we've recently done some advertising through Facebook. It's probably like $80, when we do this, but it springs out an advertisement to like any kind of demographic we want. So, a marathon runner, a triathlete, or a CrossFit runner, or a CrossFit athlete. So it like gets it to every one of those people, and it hits their Facebook, whatever. And we've gotten some good traffic with that. So not saying we've like gotten a recruit because of those ads, but it creates a good image for that. So those can certainly add up. And while I agree, pool time is by far the most expensive, the small nickel and dime advertising, website registration, and on top, obviously, the USA Water Polo, American Water Polo fees too. Now, you're talking about running a club with a pretty good image that's now getting up to the point where you're multi-$1,000s, and it's not easy to stomach that, especially with player fees and trying to keep it cost effective.
Yeah, and I mean, you're always building in that advertising. I mean, one of the things that I always think is one of the best advertisers is shirt. So how does that add in there? But then you start adding those things up, and you got to watch, as Pete said, you got to watch the costs of the players, because if you make it expensive, then you cut off a big portion of people that might be able to play.
Yeah, so let's move on to communication, because I feel like this is an issue that I have a lot with my club. I tend to over communicate, but I think the right consistency and cadence is important. So Pete, talk about, you have all your players, you have like 20, 30, 40 players, then you have all your parents. How is your communication with your parents and players? Are you relatively consistent? Is like a twice a week email? Talk to us about your cadence with that.
Yes. So I do basically a once a week email digest. I try and limit to once a week. I tell the parents and tell everybody up front that I'm going to communicate via email. Other stuff via social media is more just like reminders or more like advertising type of stuff, right? But yeah, it's that once a week. Here's everything you need to know for the next couple of weeks, the important stuff coming up. And then, obviously urgent things that come up, like tournament reschedule for the, as you're about to get in the car and drive, right? Those, one-offs, but yeah, that's the main method. But, also, the website is great for general communication. Like Mike, I definitely agree with what you said a little bit earlier about, having a professional image out there. So when somebody looks for looks for something, or, has heard of you and goes and searches it out, they see that, and it's good. But it also has the information. If a parent goes and says, "Oh, I forgot what time practice is or what the practice schedule is," it's out there on the website, and keeping that updated. Again, it's another admin job somebody's got to do, but it's important, that part of that total communication package for an organization.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right on the same page with you, Peter, on that. For both club and high school, I'm sending out about a weekly update. Now, this summer was a little different because there wasn't too much change with what's going on. But high school-wise, oh man, I was sending out a lot of emails this summer, only because how much things changed. But things in those kind of emails can also be things as shout outs and player of the week stuff, to really kind of highlight some of the things the players are doing, because they love that stuff. And that's the big thing, is these kids want to be recognized for their hard work, and so that's a great way to do it. You can almost think of communication as 3 layers. So your websites, that's the stuff you're not going to change often. That's up there. That's the base of all your communications. That's going to be there all season long, maybe all year long, for those, if you're able to plan that far in advance. Then your emails, like once a week or something like that, could be there. But then you have the text reminding systems. I use Remind for my players. I know Squirrels uses GroupMe. There's all sorts of ones out there. And those things are for the quick changes. Don't forget we have practice, or hey, there's a thunderstorm, we're not practicing tonight, type of deal. But then social media should be me personally think those should be kind of the fun things, highlighting what you're doing and getting out there and showcasing the team. But the communication part, I think, is the backbone. Like I said, email and the website are kind of the sturdy part for that.
So, Pete, when starting the club, or even just working with the club now, what resources do you rely on to help you continue to move the club forward in the right direction? Do you have any things that you typically like to rely on, or other coaches maybe that you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, I just like to follow what's going on, and more locally or regionally. Yeah, see what's going on in different areas, and see who's doing what. Is somebody starting a 12 and under team, or something that might start competing, those sorts of things, or as far as moving it forward, and anything that USA Water Polo puts out, they put out some good stuff for splash ball, which we use the coaching resources on, the drills and stuff for the young kids, and they provide some really easy, bullet point. Here's what you do with these little kids, and then to keep them entertained, so those sorts of things, what US Water Polo puts out, and obviously more advanced things they do as well. But yeah, there's some great resources, and then otherwise, yeah, it's just kind of following and seeing what else is going on in the area.
All right, so I think we have hit a lot of important topics on here, and so Pete, if you want to send us off with one last piece of advice, and then Mike, you can give us one last piece, and I'll say my piece, and that'll be a good one for tonight. So, what advice can you give, Pete, to anybody looking to start up a program?
It's a long process. It's a labor of love, but just keep in mind that it's about the kids, about the athletes, and kids that are having fun and enjoying it. Doesn't have to be super competitive right out of the gate. The ones that are having fun are the ones that are going to tell their friends and their neighbors and their family about it. So if you don't have to be the most competitive, right away. It just get them in there, get them hooked, and have some fun and enjoy the sport. And then it will grow, I think, much, much better and much faster that way.
Yeah, I would say with starting any kind of club, you just have to kind of have this long-term vision. So it's not going to happen overnight. Kind of like what Pete said, it's a labor of love, and even with an adult league, I deal with it every single day. I'm emailing back players. I'm communicating about practices. I'm dealing with a pool or something coming up like COVID. So you have to just kind of make it kind of a routine thing that you have to kind of check in with the club. It's not a seasonal thing. If you're going to start a club, it's kind of a long-term process. But at the end of the day, I think it's worthy. And Pete hit it right on the nail with it's about the kids and it's about the players. And that's really important there.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely all about the players. And my big piece of advice is there's a lot that you have to do. There's a lot you can kind of go down the rabbit hole, and so keep it simple. Even when planning practices, you could spend all day watching a million videos, finding them on Instagram, on YouTube, but keep it simple, build slow so you don't just get overwhelmed. I think with what COVID has done now is allowed so many coaches to push out so many pieces of advice to you that you can feel overwhelmed. And so just take your time. You don't have to compete with the team next to you. Just keep going, or you don't have to be the Instagram team. Just go ahead and keep going slow, build it up, and make the team yours, make the team for the kids and what they want to do. And so that way that'll be the bigger success rather than trying to be everything that you can see on social media.
All right, Pete. Well, we can't thank you enough for being on here. This has been a topic that Nick and I have talked about for a couple weeks now, actually probably a couple months, even outside of the podcast, about the struggles and the challenges, but the rewards and the benefits of the club. And we can't thank you for taking the time with us tonight. We more than likely will have you back on, maybe in a different landscape or a different topic, but we really appreciate it. Thanks for being on with us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, guys. It was good talk.
Thank you. All right, so that wraps up our evening session with the Spin Lob. I want to thank, obviously Pete for being on with us tonight and the development of a club from scratch. It's not easy, and we know a lot of clubs out there are going through something similar. But to close up, we want to provide some closing credits here. So the Spin Lob is produced and recorded live by Mike Jones and Nick Helwig. It's supported by the Ohio Squirrels Water Polo Club. It's never too old to get into the game. Go nuts. And also by Marlins Water Polo. For the love of the game, there's Marlins Water Polo. And our theme music is produced by Jason Shaw at Audio. I know Nick is going to kill me for this, but audioadtix.com. See you
Audio not ticks.
There it is. See you next time on the Spin Lob. Thanks, Jason, by the way.